History Showcase and the Muskegon County Museum in Michigan return to the Hackley House.
In 1943, with World War II raging throughout the world, Erie Hackley made the decision to donate the Hackley House to the American Red Cross. Here in Muskegon, the Red Cross took the building over, made some minor modifications to it, and made it into the region's first blood drive center. They operated in the house through the 1970s when they acquired new offices on Webster Avenue. By 1971, the three buildings of the historic site were falling into disrepair. A group of community citizens got together and made the decision that they were important and deserved to be saved and restored. Gathering community support from the Muskegon Chronicle, the Quadrangle Club, the Greater Muskegon Women Club, and the Questers, the Hackley Heritage Association was born. For the next 20 years, the Hackley Heritage Association would work to stabilize the three properties at the site and to begin initial attempts at restoration. In particular, one man, Mr. Herb Strom, led the way. His love of the houses led to the beginnings of their restoration process and set a standard for excellence, which we're still working to achieve. In 1986, the voters of Muskegon County approved a countywide millage to provide the economic support to aid in the restoration of the houses. At that time, the properties were transferred to the Muskegon County Museum. Since 1986, the museum has been working to do a museum quality restoration on the three buildings. Here in the recent past, we've been working on the Hackley House. The objective of the museum is to restore the Hackley House to its early 1890s appearance as it looked when Charles and Julia Hackley first moved in. In addition to the work being done on the Hackley House restoration, returning it to its 1890s appearance when Charles and Julia first moved in, long-range plans have also been made to guide the work for the Hume House and the barn. The three buildings of the site were designed by architect David Hopkins. A native of Argyle, New York, Hopkins came to Michigan in 1864. Working from his office in Grand Rapids, he designed all three buildings. He was also well known for his mail order catalogs of house and barn plans. The design chosen by David Hopkins was, as has been described, Queen Anne. Now this style is unique for its time because of all the varied detail that the Queen Anne style incorporates. What is unique about the Hackley House, however, is that it has this varied texture and detail, but unlike most Queen Anne houses, every one of these details was individually made specifically for the Hackley House. This image of one of the stained glass windows, which are another unique item of the Hackley House, show how Hopkins mixed styles. Here in a Queen Anne pattern, we have the addition of mihrab, which is a horseshoe shape. Mihrab is usually found in Moorish designs and specifically on Islamic prayer rugs. This is an example of the kind of exotic design style that was very popular throughout the 1880s and 90s. Another example of the Moorish revival design throughout the house is the onion or Turkish dome on the barn. Another important architectural feature of a Queen Anne home is variations in sidewall surfaces. By this I mean a difference in texture, pattern, and color. As in other cases, however, we find on the Hackley House, this variation goes to extremes that would not normally be found in a Queen Anne house. A Queen Anne house usually has a large one-story porch that may, as in the case of the Hackley House, wrap around to the side. What's unique about these porches is their decorative trim, usually called gingerbread. Once again, however, in examining the Hackley House, we find that this is far from standard gingerbread. This is all uniquely designed and custom crafted for this particular house. Another architectural element often found on a Queen Anne style house is a tower on one corner of the front facade. As we see moving around the Hackley House, it's made up of literally hundreds of architectural elements. And in order to preserve the splendor of this magnificent house, each one of these architectural elements is going to have to be addressed in the restoration phase. Having identified the architectural significance of the house, we're now ready to begin the restoration process. But long before we can hire carpenters, we can begin to work on the individual elements of architectural significance, there's a lot of research that has to be done to ensure the accuracy of the finished project. Now, how does the Muskegon County Museum go about this research? Well, we have three sources of information. Number one is documentary, taking a look at those papers, receipts, photographs, bills, and so on that have survived. Secondly, we take a look at the physical evidence. A house is just like an archaeological site. Over time, as people have modified it, have repainted it, or made changes to it, there are traces of information that can be examined by digging through the layers. And finally, we can go and take a look at other restoration projects and other research that's been done on similar types of houses to see how they have addressed problems and to take a look at what conclusions they have come up with. Another example of documentary evidence that we have for our research is the large number of photographs that still exist of the Hackley House. Fortunately, because of his prominence in the community and his wealth, the exterior of his home was photographed a number of times throughout the years. Likewise, the interior of the house was photographed shortly after they moved in. These images are important documents to aid us in the restoration work. Fortunately for the Hackley House project, many of the business papers of the Hackley and Hume Company still exist at the archives located at Michigan State University. These papers were saved by Mrs. Jean Hume Browning, a descendant of Thomas Hume. While not complete, they do provide hundreds of pieces of information on the lives of the families involved in these houses and on the construction of the houses themselves. A graduate student at the university has been hired by the museum to search through these boxes of documents page by page and to duplicate anything that has to do with the houses themselves. This information is forwarded to the museum and will then be incorporated in reports. An example of the type of document that's being retrieved from the Hackley and Hume business papers is this check made out to the Kelly Brothers Manufacturing Company. All of these little bits and pieces of historical information about the house are brought together and examined by the museum staff. The museum director is personally responsible for the actual restoration of the house. The site administrator at the Hackley and Hume Historic Site is responsible for taking this historical information and formulating it into a series of planning documents, such as historic furnishing plans, historic structure reports, and so on. These documents are what aid and guide the restoration process.
History Showcase will continue in a moment.